Hi, I'm Nicholeen Peck, and I teach parenting and family communication all over the world. And in this video, I'm talking about how to show mercy to your child. For sure, things our children do can really rub us the wrong way. They can be annoying. Children can make mistakes. We absolutely have to show mercy to our children. It's important. It's one of those tone elements that make our homes feel like safe places to make mistakes. But some people struggle with knowing the best way to show mercy to their child without being indulgent or making the child not have the opportunity to learn the lesson that they need. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about mercy, what that means, and give you some ideas for how you can better show mercy to your child. Years ago, I did treatment foster care for troubled teens. They were all between the ages of 12 and 18, and when they came to my home, they had a myriad of different things that they were dealing with. There were some processing differences as well as some trauma that they had experienced and some abuse in their past circumstances. So they had a lot of things going on, and guess what? They made a lot of mistakes. But honestly, every child makes mistakes. There's no such thing as a perfect child. That's not what being a child is about. I've had 4 children of my own as well as many, many foster children, and I've never met a perfect child yet. There's always something that can be adjusted, right? But these particular youth that came to my home, they had multiple things that they were dealing with, and it made it so that there were lots of circumstances where I needed to do correction. In fact, sometimes I felt like I was correcting and then it was minutes later and I had to do another correction just because we wanted to maintain consistency so that they could learn cause and effect, which was a big part of self-government. So speaking of self-government is understanding the cause and effect of any given situation and possessing a knowledge of your own behavior so that you can control them. So what that means is that you understand cause and effect, and then you change your behavior so that you get the outcomes that you want. So these particular youth that came to my home really needed to learn cause and effect. They'd had a lot of hard experiences in their life, and they weren't hooking the dots together, sometimes because neurologically what was going on. So they needed things to be very structured, very secure, and that's what I put together. In fact, that's what started people asking me to teach about parenting in the first place. So because I had to do so much correction, I didn't want it to be a downer all the time, and it all of a sudden hit me one day. I need to have a tone of mercy with me all the time. If I can carry a tone of mercy with me, then no matter what happens, if I need to do corrections or if things go wrong, I should be able to be okay. This meant that I could not take their behavior personally. I had to make sure that I accepted whatever their behavior was, and that I prepared myself to have merciful interactions with them. So what does a merciful interaction look like? Let's talk about that. You'll probably be surprised about some of the examples that I share for merciful interactions. The first one shouldn't surprise you too much. So when a person does something wrong, let's say they make a mistake, something that they should be corrected for, and a person decides, I don't think that you need to accept the consequences for that correction yet. Maybe we'll postpone that, or maybe we'll even just kind of wash that clean so that you don't have to accept it at all. That would be very, very merciful. And I think that's what people think of when they think of mercy. They think, okay, well, so they did something, but they don't actually have to suffer the consequences of their behavior. That's not great mercy, though, because that mercy is going to now rob the justice. It's going to rob the teaching. So I love Shakespeare. In Shakespeare's play Merchant of Venice, he talks about justice and mercy. He has his character Portia give this big speech about mercy and justice and how the only way for mercy to actually work is for there to also be justice. And that if mercy is really a thing, then justice is a thing too. It is possible to tell a person that they don't have to follow through on whatever negative consequence that they earned, potentially, if the justice is maintained. And one of the ways you would have to maintain the justice is by saying, now this is what you earned. You earned this negative consequence. Here's why. And do you understand it? And let's practice, doing this the right way or something so that we remember and we don't have this problem again in the future. And then you could say, I think you've got it enough, so I'm not going to say that you have to do the negative consequence, but next time you will, or something like that. That would be a merciful way of letting someone out of a negative consequence and making sure that they still understood the lesson, which would then preserve the justice. And I think that's what a lot of people think of when they think of mercy and being merciful in your parenting. But you do have to be very, very careful. If someone earns a negative consequence and then you just forget about it, or it doesn't happen and you just decide, oh, well, I don't have the energy to handle that, or it was 2 days ago, I'm not going to worry about it now. That is not mercy. That's not mercy. That's actually neglect, basically. So you're neglecting to do the teaching that you're supposed to be doing. The person is not getting the lesson that they need, which means they don't have the opportunity to learn the cause and effect and actually make the change, so that it does them any good. That would not be mercy. So keep that in mind. Some people will see something happen and they don't address it, whatever it is, and then they assume that they're being merciful. But is it merciful to leave a person in ignorance? Is it merciful to not address a problem that a person really should have addressed because you told them that you would address it in the future? I would say, no, that's not merciful. Again, that's just you saying, I don't want to deal with it at the time, or maybe I don't want to deal with their emotions that could come from it at the time. But in reality, true mercy is a thing because the justice is already there. So in order to show your children mercy, you have to have a very solid system in place to begin with. We're going to talk about this solid system, and I'm going to share with you some surprising other ways to show mercy. But before we do, click that subscribe button now. There are so many great videos on this channel that you are not going to want to miss. And so if you subscribe now, you'll be able to see those come up in your feed from time to time. And don't forget to click the notification bell too, because then you will actually be notified when new videos come out. So how do you create a truly just environment? Let's talk about that before we get to a couple of other surprising ways you can teach your child and show your child mercy. When you create an environment that teaches cause and effect, then you're going in the right direction, because we want to definitely show our children that when we teach them something like this skill, and if they don't follow through on the skill, then this will be the negative consequence. They need to see the cause and effect follow each other. That helps them make better decisions. One of the biggest things you'll want to do then is make sure that you teach the children ahead of time everything that's expected. So if you teach your child, this is our system, we have these skills. So in our family, we have 4 basic skills. They are following instructions, accepting no answers and criticism, accepting consequences and disagreeing appropriately. They each have skill sets attached to them. If a person does not do one of the steps of one of those skill sets in a particular moment when they're told they need to, then they will be corrected. That's consistency. So that consistent correction is actually something that establishes the justice, right? And me teaching them ahead of time, these are the skills that you need, and this is what I will do if you choose not to follow or use the skills, so that I can help you get back on track, then this is how I will handle it. These will be the types of negative consequences. So everything's laid out on the table. That's pure justice, no surprises. If you're surprising your children on a regular basis to try to shock them in some way, that is not justice, it's manipulation, and we want to stay away from that. What we do is we lay it all out, we practice it ahead of time, we teach them, and then when the moment arrives, we actually do the correction. That's justice. Now, we could see that maybe there is a circumstance from time to time when a person does not need to follow through with something that they earned. And this is when some mercy might come into play. So maybe it's somebody's birthday. Maybe they lost their privileges, they went out of control, they were selfish, it was their birthday, and I want them to have a really good birthday. Then I'm going to tell them, you've earned this negative consequence, but I want to show you a little bit mercy for your birthday, and so we're going to have you do your negative consequence of, missing privileges or whatever tomorrow, and today you're going to have your birthday the way it is. This also teaches cause and effect in the family vision, so our family has created a picture of who we're becoming as a group group. And what that does is it shows the child cause and effect that this particular picture of who we're becoming as a group is more important than this one little mistake that was made. Who we are together as a group is much more valuable. So we set those priorities in place and teaches the children what we value most. That said, if you undermine your system too much, then you've got problems. As soon as I stop correcting a problem at my house, now my children are all grown and gone now, but if I ever stopped correcting a problem or allowing someone to talk back, there would be more talking back and more of that problem. That's just what happens. That's the natural cause and effect. So we can't let the mercy, get in the way of that justice. So what else can we do to show mercy? Now, this next one really might surprise you. Many people, when they think of mercy, they think of removing something from someone or taking away a responsibility. But actually, when you do certain things, it's also very merciful. So one big merciful thing that I do for my children is I pre-teach them ahead of time what's expected. I just spoke about that. But then there's another thing that I do that's super merciful, and that is I correct the children. That does not seem merciful, does it? But it is massively merciful. I have seen multiple situations with children going out of control where if you just leave them alone and you don't actually correct them or help them or try to get them to a place of calmness, they spiral deeper, 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 and it gets worse and worse. In fact, they've done studies on this now, and they know that when you leave someone alone who's going out of control, they actually get to a rock bottom place before they bounce up. And oftentimes they'll get deeper each time. Their rock bottom gets lower and lower. So they get to a place of self-loathing, of hatred, of, really dark, bad feelings if you do not help them get to a place of calmness first. So is that merciful to allow a person to get all the way to that place when you could say something or do something that could possibly help them get back into their front brain? What you do is you correct them, and this is a merciful thing. Now, especially it's merciful if you're calm and if you're loving and you're connected to them when you do the correction. So if you've got your correction down just great so that you can maintain the bond and the positive feeling or tone and the connection with the person while doing the correction, then you really have something that will be merciful for them. So when my children needed to be corrected, I saw that it was a good thing for me to do, to correct them. This was a kindness. This was helping them not make the same mistake again. And if they started going completely out of control, I knew that I was helping them in the future not have to get to that place again, right? Or at that time, being able to get to a place of calmness, stopping themselves from going completely out of control so that they could think clearly, be understood, and have a good communication. All parenting is about is having the right conversations at the right time and teaching the right lessons. And we can't do that if people are going out of control and not being calm. So getting them to a place of calmness prepares the environment so that the parenting and the teaching can occur. I could teach you so much more about correcting. In fact, I'd really like to. So if you've enjoyed this video, I'm pretty sure you'll like the next video, which is called The Not So Known Secret for Parenting Success. It's actually a full-length class where I am teaching a lot of the nuts and bolts of teaching self-government. Of course, it's not everything, but it's really going to get you going on what you need to start working on being more merciful with your tone and your structure. So click on the link to that video now, and I'll see you there.